Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Galuh Hilma Aulia Sutrisno and I am from PPB2B, and then now I want to the global food crisis and consequence and the solution. The global food crisis consequence and solution. Major call to action to combat the situation. The current agro situation is about food availability and essential food items access, including wheat, rice, maize, and seed oil to the neediest and the most vulnerable economies. Experts assert that open trade, information transparency, waiver in food import bills, and most importantly, free flow of fertilizers for farmers worldwide are the prominent calls to action to elevate the situation. Assisting farmers with the weather index subsidies and helping them sow weather-resistant seeds to control crop losses are some of the measures that require universal infrastructure. The macro-level consequence, alongside developing nations, the global north, including the UK and US, is also experiencing a rise in food crisis. However, developing African nations are significantly impacted because of their insecurity of either getting inadequate or unaffordable essential food items. If we consider North Africa, its countries rely on Russia and Ukraine for wheat imports, and their governments' rising food bills are impossible to pay. The region now desperately seeks UN interventions to bring food and inflation relief measures. Government respond on the food crisis. Rather than finding a corroborative approach to the situation, the primary food exporting governments have imposed individual trade restrictions on their food grain trade, exacerbating the situation. Discount for 20 nations that levied heavy taxes on their agro-exports by March 2022 and their combined 17% restrictions in trade calories. In May this year, India restricted its wheat export to support domestic access to the grain. In September, the nation banned broken rice export and put a 20% duty on non-basmati rice, excluding pro-boiled rice. However, the broken rice export ban decision was taken to boost the nation's ethanol blending program and lessen its dependence on unfavorable oil imports. Grain usage for ethanol production has been permitted in the nation. Additionally, the Russia-Ukraine conflict has aggraved the black market and grain hoarding, hurting dwindling economies like Tunisia and Turkey. As part of preemptive measures against the arbitrary export of good grains, the Tanzanian government has made company registration for Kenyan importers compulsory in Dar es Salaam. Okay, next is increase in hunger and global malnutrition. Long-standing inflation, extreme climatic conditions, famine in certain nations, aggravated by the pandemic, and armed European conflict have led to one of the century's most deep-rooted global food insecurity. Even before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, there were inflationary tensions in the commodity market, but the situation became all the more severe as the conflict set in. Eventually, Russia's shortage of wool and fertilizer supplies, like nitrogen and potash, affected farmers worldwide. It caused a shrink in harvests of wheat, corn, rice, and oilseeds, and eventually the whole supply chain now seems dismantled. Economists predict that a grave situation prevails today. If it persists for a few more years, it could reverse the mass hunger and malnutrition reduction efforts made by international bodies in the past. The next is effect of the conflict. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has put nearly 30% of the wheat supply they jointly provide to the world on hold. The conflict has also affected the supply chain of barley, sunflower seed oil, and corn for the same reason. In the past 7 years, there have been continuous social upheavals and political conflict in conflict-ridden nations, most of which are struggling developing economies. One may refer to Ethiopia, Afghanistan, Central Africa, Gambia, Liberia, Mali, Mozambique, Rwanda, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, Yemen, and Ukraine. The conflict-hit zones are expected to have suffered for insecurity the most as the political establishment cannot cope with the rising import bill and social instability all at core. Global economic sanctions have always been debatable, and socio-political tensions have made vulnerable nations pay the price for the instability that these tensions bring to the world. And the last is how international bodies are addressing the nations. The global food crisis of 2022 has garnered much concern. International bodies including the United Nations World Food Programme or UNWFP and International Monetary Fund or IMF have deliberated on how to control the current food insecurity crisis. World nation and crisis experts also accept the IMF to step in and wipe or divert the balance of payments. This could control the social unrest prevalent in the conflicting nation with no future security and struggling to feed their people. The most prominent example is the climate induced for insecurity in Pakistan and the nation raising balance of payments. As per UNWFP statistic, the number of people facing food insecurity has doubled to 276 million in the past 2 years, with around 800. As per UNWFP statistics, the number of people facing food insecurity has doubled to 276 million in the past 2 years, with around 811 million of the population sleeping on an empty stomach. The figure could reach up to 1.2 billion, with an increase in food imports bills by over $25 billion for the vulnerable economies. That's UNWFP predict. Okay, thank you. And then wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.